Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're in the middle of our study of the four women who are mentioned in Matthew's genealogy. And we are talking about Ruth, and we told her story last time. Today we want to ask, why is she here? Why is it important to mention Ruth in the genealogy that Matthew so carefully constructs for Jesus, linking him both to David and to Abraham? Well, um, uh, she's in the lineage of David. She's his great grandmother. Um, she's also the daughter-in-law of Rahab, so there's that too. But she's David's great grandmother, and so it's important. But even in Ruth's own book, when the lineage linking her to David is given at the end of the book, even though this is a woman's book, she isn't mentioned by name. Only the men are mentioned. So Matthew doesn't have to mention her. She's not even mentioned in the genealogy given at the end of her own book. Boaz is, which is kind of the point, which is interesting because legally it should be Chilion, but it's not in God's eyes, not in the book of Ruth, and not in Matthew, not in the Old Testament or the New. Boaz is the father. That makes sense too, because Boaz really is the best man we meet in the Bible, not named Jesus. Um, although Joshua and Jonathan are close uh, to tie for second place, I think. Um, he's a special man. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about Ruth. Why is she here? She's a Moabite woman who came to faith in Yahweh and who had absolute faith in Yahweh, just like Rahab did. And so, do we have any question why Boaz would be willing to marry a foreign woman who was also a woman of faith? His mother was a foreign woman and a woman of faith, and he grew up in a household where he was well aware that they were not fully they were different from other people because his mother was not a Jew at all. His mother was foreign, but she was a woman of great faith. So much so that she's mentioned in Hebrews 11. So there's that. There's the whole faith aspect of it. I think I really believe that Ruth is mentioned by name not just because of her faith, but because of her love. Because the climactic sentence of the book of Ruth, which we read last time, is about her love. Your daughter-in-law who loves you is more valuable to you than 7 sons. As Paul will point out in 1 Corinthians 13, love is the only thing that gives anything else value. And if you have love, then you have everything. And she had this one person. She didn't have a male protector, but she had a daughter-in-law who loved her. And he was willing to act upon her faith in God and to turn her back on anything else she could have had in her father's home, a new husband, whatever, no promise of anything, just to care for this woman that she loved. And of course, because of that, everything worked out. I think it's important for us. I think the Holy Spirit, through Matthew, felt it was important for us to remember all of that. So we have not only faith, um, communicated by these women in the lineage, but also love communicated. Particularly Ruth's story is a story of love. Ruth's story is a story about love. It just is. And so it's important for us to remember her for that reason. There's one other thing, um, and it wouldn't be so obvious to us, but it would have been glaringly obvious to Matthew. By the first century into this day, there are 5 shorter books: Esther, Lamentations, and Ruth. And I don't remember the other two. I mean, I've just gone blank. I know what they are. But anyway, they're called the Megilloth, and they're read at Jewish feast days. Lamentations is read on Day of Atonement. Esther is mentioned, read on Purim because it's the origin of Purim. And Ruth is read too at a Jewish feast day every year. It's read on the day of Pentecost, and so it's pretty cool that on the day that the Holy Spirit came down and the gospel was preached for the first time. They had read publicly this story of a Moabite woman, this story of sacrificial love, changing everything and making everything better. They'd heard all that, and it helped prepare their minds to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. So, okay, we need to talk about Bathsheba. To me, this is by far the hardest, absolute hardest one. And she's not named. And we'll talk about why. We'll start talking about Bathsheba next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.